Andrew, why are you so sad?
Well, Trip, I've got an Android phone and I don't know how to find my favorite podcasts on it.
Well, did you know that the Podcast Republic app can serve all of your podcast needs in one convenient location?
All of them? How does it work?
Well, you find the Podcast Republic app on the Google Play Store, you download it to your device, and then you mark all your favorite podcasts as your favorites.
Like Dissecting the 80s?
Exactly like that. And then every time they update, the episodes zip right to your phone.
Wow, how convenient.
That's right, the Podcast Republic app for Android devices. Don't forget you can support this podcast on Patreon by visiting patreon.com/dissectingthe80s. There you can choose a tier that works for you, from $2 for where you get the monthly newsletter, all the way up to $88 where you get a custom episode of the show recorded for you on vinyl. Patreon.com/dissectingthe80s. Welcome to Dissecting the 80s. I am Trip Lano, one half of the Mega Podcasting Powers, and with me, as always, is my tag team partner, a man that can only be described as Macho! The Macho Mandrew.
Andrew Lano.
I went full Kirk there. I had the veins bulging and everything, so imagine that happening while you listen to it. It is Tulai. It is my pick. I can see the disappointment creeping into Andrew's face already as we sit down to start this. We have not talked about this movie at all yet.
Nope.
I think mostly because I'm about to get it with both barrels. We watched Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, universally accepted as the best Star Trek movie by people who aren't on this podcast. So you know what that means.
We gotta go back. We gotta go dissect the 80s. It's your Khan! Something's gotta be right about your Khan!
When the mega powers explode!
I'm talking about the 80s. Oh, yeah.
Great Scott!
Cream of the crop. Oh, yeah.
Mega powers, yeah!
When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit.
We are a little bit on the nose.
Is the only take you getting? Because that hurt my throat. It made me cough.
Yeah, no, it's a big performance he does. It's a very big performance.
That's a word for it.
So, real quick, just a little Star Trek backstory. This is the return of Khan Noonien Singh from the episode Space Seed, which pretty much every Star Trek episode ranking puts this episode in the top 5. I don't remember it. I watched Star Trek once the summer after I graduated from college. I blew through all of it after seeing the remake movie. I don't really remember much of it, but I generally prefer Star Trek when it's a little sillier. I think a lot of the
A little too dry for me.
more... Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. Star Trek tackled some really cool, big issues that were prevalent in the society that it was aimed at. I mean, it aired from the 60s and then really became a hit in the 70s. But personally, I feel like a lot of the serious episodes have the tone of an after-school special these days.
Yeah, that's definitely a good approximation.
And so for me, it's a lot more fun when it's just like, it's a space western with space cowboys, yeehaw, and less like, this is an important thing about accepting others, which I like is great, and I'm glad it existed, and it was a show that was probably a not insignificant part of people of color and people of different backgrounds feeling more accepted. There's a really, really incredible, like every time I watch it, I get a little verklempt. And I know this is silly because what I'm about to say to you is ridiculous, but there's an incredible drunk history short about Nichelle Nichols, who's Lieutenant Uhura on the show and in this movie. And I'm not going to do the whole thing, but she was about to leave Star Trek, and she was like, I'm not digging this. It's not for me. And she met Martin Luther King at a NAACP event. And they asked her if she would be willing to meet somebody, and they kind of like put her in a back room, and in walks Martin Luther King, who just like totally fanboys out and is like, you're on the only show that I let my kids watch. Like, we all sit down together as a family and we watch this show together. It's the only show where black people aren't servants or worse in the way they're treated. Like, you're a major part of this. You're a thing. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry to tell you, I quit the show. And he was like, no, you can't quit the show. And she was like, no, I quit the show. And he's like, no, again, you can't quit the show. Like, you're the only person of color on television who's not a maid. You cannot quit that show. So don't go undo that. And then she did. And then it goes on to talk about how Nichelle Nichols, after being this cultural icon, went to NASA and was like, hey, where's all the black people? This is a very white dude thing. And they were like, I don't know. You think you could do that? And then she recruited the first minority candidates who went to space. She recruited women and the first black woman.
I thought you were
and the
about to
first
say
black
that
man.
she recruited the computers from like Hidden Figures, and I was like, wait a minute. They left that part out of Hidden Figures.
No. But she was like a significant part of the recruiting efforts of NASA to diversify NASA. But yeah, so you should all go look up this drunk history video of Nichelle Nichols. She is truly amazing woman who did some incredible things for society as a whole. But yeah, it's an amazing story. And I even retelling it to you, I get like a little verklempt.
That is, I love that so much.
So, changing gears drastically, let's get to Wrath of Khan. You've only ever seen one other Star Trek thing, right? You've seen the movie with the whales that we did for this. Have you ever seen any of the remakes or anything?
I've seen part of the remake, the first one. And then the second one, I just remember that they kept being like, don't worry, he's not Khan. And then he like fully was Khan, and everyone was like, yeah, we knew that. Like, this isn't exciting.
The worst part of it too is there's no like explanation in that universe for who he is, because they reveal, this is a spoiler for that movie, so I'm about to ruin this if you haven't seen it yet.
Wasn't it like 3 years old at this point?
I mean, more than that. But they're like, oh, it's not Khan, it's not Khan. It's like, it's definitely going to be Khan, but okay. And then you get there, and that he's just a guy, and then suddenly he's like, my name is Khan Noonien Singh. And the movie treats that like as oh shit! But the audience doesn't know who that is. Like, if you're not...
Other than the people who are Star Trek nerds.
Right, but there's no explanation in the movie for like, oh, this is a bad guy. And then they literally have a character, they have new Spock Skype with old Spock, who's like, he is the most despicably evil man we ever came across in our travels. You should be very afraid of Khan Noonien Singh. It's like, you literally had to have a character like talk to at the audience and be like, he is a very bad man. He's very scary. Don't be taking this man lightly.
So in new Star Trek, is it like the next? There is a next generation, so I can't even make that stupid joke. But
you
is
could say
it like
the new generation.
the next generation? So like,
no,
it's like Spock's grandkid or whatever the fuck.
No, it's Spock, but from a different time. Okay. It's like an alternate timeline deal where it's like there are like the string theory of the universe where like there's an infinite number of parallel universes.
Yeah,
this is just a different. Yeah, this is just a different one. And then also somehow in the first one, Spock from the original timeline shows up as like a very old man who got like marooned on a planet or something like that.
Okay, so
I don't remember how they hand waved it away, to be quite honest with you.
But that Spock knew a Kirk.
No, okay, so the movies that
Spock
came out
knew a Kirk. No,
but he knows his Kirk.
Yes, that's what I mean. So it's like
yes,
all Spocks are sort of like predestined.
So okay,
to meet
I
Kirks.
believe the way they do it on the show or in the universe canon is like Spock Prime is old man Spock who was on the 60s television show, and then Spock is just the one played by the guy from Heroes who is best friends with a different James T. Kirk, who is also his best friend.
Zachary
and they
Quinto.
also
I love him.
Zachary
and
Quinto, yes.
And his brow ridge.
Speaking of, Zachary Quinto is now hosting Mysterious Universe or something like that. I can't remember the name of the show, but it's a show that Leonard Nimoy hosted for a different channel back in the day. So now he's just become Leonard Nimoy. He just assumed his form. He was like, that's why he died. Zachary Quinto was like, your work is done here, and he just dissipated into ether.
And Leonard Nimoy was straight, right? I know George Takei was gay. Is gay.
Yeah, as far as I know, Leonard Nimoy is straight, yes.
Okay.
I don't know what he got into. He lived through the 60s, so like anything
Who
is
knows
possible.
what happened
yeah, I
there?
mean, yeah, it could have been just about anything, but as far as I know, he was not publicly out in any way. So yeah, it's a confusing timeline that Star Trek wraps itself up in, but for somehow Zachary Quinto is just like assumed Leonard Nimoy's form, which I think is pretty wild.
Works for me. I mean, I like him a lot, but I feel like he doesn't work as much as I think he should in terms of being a talented performer. Because he did Heroes, and then he was in Star Trek, and he was in a couple seasons. Was he in just one season of American Horror Story or two? He was in at least one season of American Horror Story.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they got like nice contracts for Star Trek and therefore he could just like be choosier. I don't really know. Or maybe he's just like a quiet guy who doesn't want to be out there that much. I don't know.
He did do Glass Menagerie on Broadway like 4 years ago because I have a signed poster that I won at an auction.
Did he play one of the menagerie animals?
Yes, he was the unicorn.
Oh, okay. So you've only seen parts of the thing. This is your first entry then into like real serious town Star Trek.
Yeah. I definitely waited on the bus for the trip to go back. But yeah, it was. It just was so effing dry. And like so mired down in the minutia of like here's this. I was like, at least in Star Trek is just like fancy, fast-paced space battle. Like, mom in a Midwest town can still watch a Star Wars movie and like know what the fuck is happening. Not so with Star Trek. They're like, we are exclusively for nerds, and that's okay with us.
Yeah, it's fascinating. We're gonna get to the
My
movie.
first note was, so is Khan a thing before this? Like, was he
Yes.
in this? I know that
Yes.
now, but like, literally going in blind, my first note was like, so was Khan like a known commodity for the Star Trek universe? Do they make him up as for a thing? So you had to have
I
watched
found that
this
fascinating.
specific episode of Star Trek to understand who this guy was.
They do eventually have like 12 seconds of dialogue that's like, oh, we encountered this guy once before, we marooned him on a planet, and now he's pissed.
Even still, like, you're not gonna get friggin' Seinfeld. You have to have watched the one about the babka in order to understand this feature-length film. Like, that's not a thing.
It's kind of like prestige television, though.
What do you mean?
Where, like, you can't just, like, fire up an episode of The Handmaid's Tale mid-season and watch it. And, like, our older brother, we were talking about a different science fiction show, Firefly, once, and I mentioned how much I really liked it. And he's like, oh, I never got into it. And I was like, oh, did you watch it? He's like, yeah, a couple episodes. I was like, you can't just, like, pick an episode of Firefly. Like, you have to start with the first chapter of the story. And he was like, I do what I want. And I was like, no, it's not CSI. It's not NYPD Blue.
This is
like,
Gator Murders.
Right. But it's a real thing with prestige television. I actually just read an article today where there's an older person talking about how she just like doesn't get into TV anymore because she used to be able to just like turn the TV on and then watch whatever it was, and within a few minutes, like, oh, they're cops and they're chasing a bad guy, and now it's like,
Oh, she's
16...
Jessica Fletcher,
Yeah.
writer turned detective / murderer.
Right, and now it's like, oh, you have to know who this character is and what their relationship is to 8 other people, and it started 3 years ago, and if you don't start at the beginning, you're hosed.
It's like a soap opera.
Yeah, well, the opposite, because I feel like you could jump into a soap opera at any point in time, and you'll get it quickly.
Yeah, although I guess I'm used to, I was in my head, soap operas are like so entrenched in lore and stories, and you're like, well, who is that person, and why does she hate this person? Well, who do they do?
Right. Anyway, we start off, we got the big Star Trek
Kirstie
fanfare.
Alley's here.
Yeah. Former person that we liked as Americans, and now someone who we don't need as much anymore.
Did she like do something? Like, is there something I've missed?
I mean, she went like hardcore super Trump supporter.
Oh, missed that.
And there was another bad, dumb thing she did where it was just like, I'm taking this opinion that is far opposite of what public opinion is about this issue and move it on. So I don't remember what it was, though.
Huh. I just remember she used to do those weight loss commercials where she would be like, fettuccine.
And it was like just absolute garbage food she was shilling.
Yeah, it's freezer food.
Yeah. Anyway, I will say, as a big old nerdy nerdster, the Star Trek music, the like, whoosh, Bosch is always like a nice little thing for me. And I will also say I love the ethos of this show, of that the mission, our 5-year mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new adventures, to boldly go where no man has gone before. I love that. It is like as close to a life philosophy as I have.
It's a slow 5 years for them.
Actually, I think in the movie they called it their ongoing journey or continuing journey.
They retconned because they were like, yeah, it's been over 5 years.
Yes. The original show that said 5-year mission, which I thought was like really clever. Like, oh, if we say 5-year mission, they got to keep us around for 5 years. So we get 3 entire minutes of credits. That's like every single person in the original cast has to be alone on screen with their name and the character they're playing, and it had to be like some contractual bullshit because it's like, oh my god, we get it.
It's a Star Trek movie. Just put them all on screen at the same time.
Yes.
Wrap it up.
Right. It's like, and George Takei as Sulu, and then like a 5-second break, and then Nichelle Nichols as Lieutenant Uhura, and it's like, oh my god, just
it
get
was
on
borderline a turn and smile without the images.
Yeah, no, it's totally crazy. I ended up fast forwarding through the credits because I couldn't take it anymore. It was just blue stars and space names. That's all we got. So we have a cockpit of the Enterprise, and there's a distress signal, and then suddenly, oh no, there's Klingon warbirds. And there's all sorts of explosions happen. Sulu goes down. Bones goes down.
Like friggin' mayflies.
Like they do.
It's like flag football. And they're like, oh, my flag's done. Bye.
That is
Two-hand touch.
analogy.
Oh, you touched me. I'm done. I'm down. I'm gonna go have orange slices.
And then you're like, wait, why is this woman controlling the Enterprise with the original cast? Like, what's happening here?
How did Kirstie Alley get in charge of everybody that I think I should know from that one episode of Futurama?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, we should have listed that as your Star Trek bona fides. You've seen that episode of Futurama.
A bunch, because I love Futurama.
Yeah. It's one of the best episodes of Futurama, actually. I think it's really wonderful.
Spock has some drag queen-ass eyebrows. He blocks the end.
That's pretty true to life.
An extreme arch.
That's how Vulcan eyebrows just grow.
Well, why does Kirstie Alley not have that? Because Kirstie Alley was also crying and doing other stuff, and I was like, I'm confused because she's got the ears and she's supposed to be a Spock person, but Spock's all cold and logical that I thought was the thing.
Well, I think, like Spock, Kirstie Alley is only part Vulcan, and part of the whole journey of the character of Spock over the show is like, I'm a Vulcan, we don't have emotion, but he's actually half human, so he like has emotions and he tries to deal with that.
So he's like a mermaid, but Vulcan human.
Yes, but much more practical for, day-to-day existence outside of water.
You never know.
I'm assuming mermaid, unless you have like a wagon with a tank on it and the mermaid is like sloshing around, that there's not a lot of like land-based mermaid activity.
A splash situation where when her legs are dry, she gets legs.
Oh, okay, that is true. Stay tuned, by the way. Coming one of these days. Splash.
Eventually, it'll happen. So everyone's dead really quick, and I was like, this is weird. It's like a Scream movie where the people you expect to be to the end are dead in the first 2 minutes. And then they were like, oh, by the way, it's a training simulation. And I was like, oh, that's weird. Okay, fine. It was the Kobayashi Margulies.
Maru.
Whatever.
Maru.
Kuchi Kobe Margulies.
And Kirk walks in carrying a fucking textbook, which is just like, what are we doing here? Like, he's got a book.
He's teaching driver's ed.
Yeah, he is. From the manual. That would be the equivalent of Michael Jordan being like, I'm going to teach you how to shoot free throws. And he cracks open a book, and it's like, how to shoot a free throw for dummies. Like, no, he is the teacher. Let him be the source of the information.
Although we later find out, spoiler alert, that Kirk never actually did the test. He just cheated.
No, okay. So that is exactly what I wanted to talk about here. But first, though, Dr. McCoy Bones is laying on the floor with like his like a pinup. When Kirk walks in, he's got this like sort of sexy Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park.
I feel like he's me in the Star Trek universe, just like kind of dicking around, like half serious about everything.
He is my favorite part of the show. Like, everybody loves Kirk and Spock, and they're great, but I love when it's the three of them, and Kirk and Spock are like, this is the plan. No, this is the plan. And Bones is like, you're both stupid. Here's a much better thing to do, is always my favorite when he's like the savior. Anyway, he's like looking very sexy on the floor there. R.I.P. DeForest Kelly. They start talking to Kirstie Alley about no-win situations, and Kirk is like lecturing her about like, oh, you know, and I don't know if
situations happen all the time in battle.
Right. I don't know if this movie is the first time it's brought up, but as a Star Trek person who's like seen all this stuff, I'm like, Kirk cheated on the Kobayashi Maru that he's lecturing her about because he doesn't believe in no-win scenarios. What are we doing here? So I would have to check the timeline to see where this came up originally, but I was mostly deeply confused at Kirk lecturing somebody. It's like the most hypocritical nonsense.
Yeah, I was like, bro, you didn't take the test. You cheated and rewrote the test to fit what you wanted, and then pretended you were like so suave about it. Like, how is he an admiral? How did he ever get to captain? They were like, hey, to pass this driver's test, you have to drive this car. And he was like, well, what if I drove a boat instead? Give me a driver's license. And they're like, that's a cool thing you did, but like, it's still not the parameters of the thing you're supposed to be doing.
I believe the whole point of the reason why it worked for him is like no one has ever contemplated the idea of thinking about the test on a meta level and being like, oh, well, to solve the problem in this test, I just have to fix the broken test. And they're saying like that's high level problem solving, which is what the Kobayashi Maru is supposed to teach you anyway.
I guess, but like still, he's still not equipped to deal with a no-win situation, which will happen in Space Future.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, I just looked it up, and this is the first time it's ever mentioned. So it is like the audience doesn't know he cheated until he tells them later.
There is also a beautiful FU to Kirk in the very end. Spoiler, I'm just going to jump to the end because I don't really care. Where like he goes down, like Spock sacrificed himself, and he like goes to the tank, and he like puts his hand on the glass, and Spock is like, I've finally taken the Kobayashi Maru. What did you think of my answer? And I was like, bet you feel like a dick now, don't you, Kirk? I actually did the damn thing. In real life.
Yeah.
Suck on that.
Yeah, because Kirk definitely would not do that.
No!
I know people are going to tweet.
From the 2 movies I know about this man. No, he would not.
We're going to get a lot of tweets, but I do not see Kirk doing the Spock role in this and just being like, oh, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one.
No, he'd be like, the needs of my penis outweigh the get in my bed.
I also like
hey, this is slowly filling up with radiation poisoning, and he's like, and bone.
I mean, to be fair, if you knew you were going out, you might as well go out with a bang, literally, instead of metaphorically.
Yes, 100%. But also, like, if your best friend is the type to sacrifice himself to save everyone, and you are the type to say, let's go to Bone Town and just let everybody die, you're not the good person here.
I would totally agree with that. I also think it's really funny that we get Chekhov's no-win situation as a Chekhov. Like, like certainly this isn't going to come into play later, right? Yeah. The whole opening act of this movie is about this thing.
I wish we got a Chekhov's Chekhov.
That would have been really good. He almost is. He gets that worm in his ear in a second.
Yeah, it's similar to a Chekhov's Chekhov.
I also like one of them has the line about they're like too old to be doing this still, that like they shouldn't be, you know, part of the training, and they shouldn't be, and it's like, y'all are gonna do like 6 more movies. I hope you are okay with what's going on, because you are a long way away from it being over.
What they should have done is, like, when the test was over, they should have done that, like, the like beam me up,
the
effect. The transporter effect on them, so they would look like they were like CGI programs. Like, why the hell is the actual cast, like, crew of the casting crew? Jesus Christ! Why the hell is the actual crew of the Enterprise part of this one Kobayashi Maru test and has to like pretend to be dead? Like, shouldn't it just be all programmings?
So I think what they do, and again, really poorly, they're Spock's students, and I think it was like, oh, let's bring in the best of the best to be the leaders of these things so that we can really test these kids with the absolute, you know, optimal people giving them direction. Like, think about it as they all became professors, I guess, of teaching the next generation of Starfleet Academy how to be
an
good.
Situation.
Yeah. I still think it's goofy the way that it's represented in the movie, that like Scotty is down there in the engine room with 1,000 cadets who just don't know what they're doing. It is like, yeah, like that's a hellscape. It's like one guy who's competent and 100 idiots is not a good way to
camp counselor to a bunch of 15-year-olds.
Yes, exactly. They're all camp counselors.
That's really
spoiler alert. I would watch the shit out of that version of this, where it's like the Enterprise gets marooned, and then it's like a bunch of like a color war, basically, of all the different groups.
I'm here for this.
Oh my god! Scotty in the engine room with like a bunch of doofuses, and then Spock with a bunch of medical doofuses. I love it. Somebody rate this movie.
I'm there for this.
Cancel that show, CBS. Make this one instead.
I was gonna say, you know, it's gonna be a stupid episode of that goddamn show.
So it's Captain Kirk's birthday, and everybody's getting him gifts.
He gets referred to as an overgrown Boy Scout, which feels weird for the 23rd century.
Yeah, they make a lot of current day references for supposedly a lot of time has passed into the future.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know if you remembered, but those glasses came back in our in part 4. Remember they went to the pawn shop with them?
I do not remember that, but I believe.
Okay. the Kirk pawns those glasses to get something.
Oh, that's kind of a dick move. He's just kind of a dick.
Well, he did it with the person who gave him the gift. It was like, hey, we need money. This is like, it's a desperate situation. And also, it was like a weird, remember they time traveled? So he was like, if I don't sell these glasses to this pawn shop, they'll never end up back in my hands in 500 years. So I have to do this.
It's real stretchy.
Yeah, no, I agree. So Chekhov has his own ship now, and he's the only one of all the people to get their own ship and not be glorified Hogwarts staff. It's Chekhov. And he's out there roaming out, looking for a lifeless planet that they can use this device on, the Genesis device, which is like now just a standard sci-fi trope for a device to be something that you'd shoot it at a dead planet and then suddenly it springs to life and you have a fully formed planet. That is such like absolute standard sci-fi stuff now. But back then, this is probably one of the first shows or movies to deal with that.
Like, so, like, I just don't understand why you would design something like this and not have it like bypass already living organisms. Like, you know what planets could probably use that? The ones that already have life and have no resources. Like, how about you invent a machine that creates new life without destroying everything else? Because if you design that and don't see the militaristic applications, you're an idiot. Like, obviously they wouldn't be your first choice, but
I don't understand. I mean, I think from like, and again, we're talking about stupid fake nonsense, but how would it, like, I guess in fiction you're just saying it would just not kill living things, but it would just literally transform the ground under their feet? That seems impossible.
Yes. You know what else is probably impossible?
I mean,
science magic. Like, if we're gonna write science magic, then like it should be able to be like, oh, it only enhances life already on the Earth. Like it's like Rogaine. Like you need the hair to be there for it to attach to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying is fine. Like, it's all nonsense. But part of my brain is like, I don't know. Like, you could easily have a situation where you shoot a rock with some organisms and they blast them into life. How would you possibly control the scope of what you're saying? Like,
this
it's
thing
all
also
stupid.
creates a planet later. So,
well, see, that's the part where it gets insane because it like scoops up a bunch of other shit to create a planet.
That's insane.
Yes. Look, I will buy that you could theoretically create a missile that if you shot it at a rock would terraform it and make habitable life. It's stupid, but I buy it.
Fair. Okay, fair.
It's like a thing that I've seen across many different science fictions and such. Like, get it. Totally get it. I've seen it, but your thing seems too ridiculous.
Yeah, okay.
You added too many features.
I didn't. I said, oh, it will enhance life already on the planet. It won't create new life out of literally nothing. It won't literally be God.
You're like, I created a water gun that also I created a gun that is also a shotgun, that is also a missile launcher, and also a flamethrower.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying, oh, I basically, like, created a Miracle Grow squirt gun.
All right, I buy that.
Like, oh, this makes all life form. It enhances all life on this planet.
Right. This is also the first movie with a fully CGI sequence. It's the one where they show how this device works.
Yeah.
That's the first time that's ever in a movie.
I liked
was
it.
An entire, yeah. So anyway, he's scoping out for a planet, and then they find this empty ship, and they're like, well, we should go see if there's people on it. And Chekhov doesn't recognize it, which is batshit nuts because like in a minute he's gonna recognize Khan.
Because, well, you know what else should have recognized? The fucking marooned planet. Like, if we're gonna maroon people on a planet, let's like laser etch something into the surface that's like, this is an exile planet.
They just like carve it into the surface.
We clearly have no regard for the natural life on this planet. So let's just carve something into the surface so that we don't make this mistake.
Mommy, what's this canyon? Well, son, this is where the spaceship that left us here used a giant laser to carve evil people here don't help. We're basically the Australia of planets, except instead of forming a vibrant country that many people live in, we just were left here and abandoned. And everyone knows, don't come in here, bad people only.
Yes, like, why would we leave this to chance that this, because the whole idea is that like a planet got exploded and knocked this planet into that other planet's orbit, so they thought it was a different planet.
Yeah. It seems like an unlikely scenario to happen frequently enough that you have to carve things into the planet as like a fucking post-it note.
But like, here's my thing. If you saw the planet exploded, wouldn't someone go like wonder what happened here?
I mean, probably, yes.
And everything is like, if you don't label things, things get lost. Like,
This is true.
Office supply
it's like
cabinet rules.
It's a space label maker, what you want.
Yes.
You want a laser space maker. Okay.
I just want to, like a laser printer, just a real quick etch, like exile planet. Don't come here.
So I will totally buy that Chekhov forgets what the planet looked like. Because he's seen a lot of planets. He does a lot of traveling. I'll give you that one. But I just don't buy that he doesn't recognize the ship, right? Like,
Yeah.
The time that they encountered Khan was one of the most dangerous things that ever happened to them. You'd think it would be etched in his brain forever and ever. And instead, he's like walking through this ship being like, gee, this ship seemed very familiar to me. And then suddenly, like a bunch of people.
What that dialect was, but
It was not good. It was not good. It was not good. He's more like, Captain, this ship feels very familiar.
Yeah, it's like borderline Dracula.
Yeah, it is a very Dracula-esque accent, yes. So he's walking around, and it's like, you'd think he'd notice, like, I once slept in this bunk here. Like, you'd think he would know that, but no, he does not.
You should remember things. And instead, the grandfather from Spy Kids is here.
Wait, really?
Yeah, he's in a wheelchair in the Spy Kids movies.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Except in the 3D one, which I only ever saw once because it was like right at the end of my like Spy Kids time. They like had to go into a video game, and so Grandpa got to get out of his wheelchair because he was like zapped into a video game.
I like Ricardo Montalban. I think this is
That's
like
what
a
I
cool.
know him as. He's a lovely actor, but I just know him as the grandfather in Spy Kids.
I think he's really a great bad guy in this movie. I think it's like a really solid.
Yeah.
We've mentioned this before, but to me, the best bad guys are right. And him being like, you shouldn't have left a crew of people marooned on a planet forever and ever and never thought to check up on them or anything like that. Like, I realize you were putting us in jail, but there's a big difference between like, hey, you're in jail and hey, goodbye forever. And I'm going to come kill you for that.
Because
like
we
totally
will make a Chippendales and we will fill it with my men.
Exactly. He's very oiled up, Ricardo Montalban.
No, that's a fact. I looked that one up.
What?
Because I was looking through the trivia on this movie to see, and it was like most of Khan's henchmen were Chippendales dancers.
Really? That makes so much sense.
Why none of them talk?
Yes, there's no dialogue, and they're all shirtless. That's so funny.
They look like the damn Lost Boys from Hook.
Yeah, they do, except shirtless and oily. Mm-hmm. But I think he's really good. Like he's also a quiet villain, which I like more than a yelling guy, because the yelling guy is not as scary to me.
I agree.
So he's like, look, you trapped me here for 15 years.
15's also not that long, buddy. Like, I feel like the show could have been like, oh, he's been here for 50 years.
That's like 15 years of solitary confinement. Your brain would turn to mush.
He had a wife. He had
Who
he
died?
had people there 5 years ago. So like she was there for a while.
I feel like 15 years on an inhospitable planet is like a pretty tough sentence. So he lays out his whole plan and is like, hey, we're going to kill you. Also, the way we're going to do it is this giant, tiny Tremors worm that has a baby worm
It's a really
growing
cool
in its
effect.
back. Yeah, it's
Or
like
rather
this.
rather cool creature design.
Yeah, it like comes out of the sand and is like all wriggling around, and then they like peel the back plates apart, and he pulls out the little baby versions, which are like eel, sluggy looking things, and they put them in each of these guys' helmets, and then they put their helmets back on, and the creatures like wiggle into their ear, and he explains that it attaches to your brainstem and makes you very susceptible to suggestion, and then eventually kills you. But what I want to know is like, what was that process like? Like, how did they figure that out?
Yeah. Because I imagine it was like one dude got weirdly susceptible, and they were like, what's happening to you? Why are you doing everything I say? Why are you taking my jokes literally?
Right, and then like afterward, did they just like slice people's heads open and see what was in there? Like that seems like a crazy thing that they would have come across.
Although in the movie, it does seem to be a rather short host period, because eventually they like within a couple days, maybe a day. I couldn't tell. The timeline in this movie is very weird. The sluggies are just like, never mind, we're out of here, and you're allowed to live.
Well, they kill one first, and then it makes the other one jump out of Chekhov. And I always assumed it was tied together.
Oh, I didn't get that they were tied.
I mean, I was just the movie certainly didn't tell us that. That was just my.
Oh God, no.
I just like the guy offs himself, and then immediately the other one hops out of Chekhov's ear. So I just assumed there was some sort of like psychic link, but the movie certainly does not tell you.
Mm-hmm. We also should have mentioned that the movie doesn't tell you what Genesis is or does for the first, I don't know, half hour, 45 minutes of this movie.
Yeah, they just keep saying Genesis device over and over again, and it's like, I get from the name you could possibly guess what it does, but holy crap, could you take a second and tell me?
Because they keep being like, I will take the Genesis project. And then he's like, we are taking Genesis project. And you're like, but what is it?
And then eventually they're like, oh, by the way, this is what this thing does. Beep, boop, 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 boop.
And you're like, thank you. I've only been asking for that for 45 minutes.
So after Chekhov and Captain Tyrrell get their earworms, we cut back to Kirk reuniting with his one true love, the Starship Enterprise. And
For reals, though.
yeah, no, it absolutely is. And he does like a short inspection of the crew, and they're wearing the weirdest costumes. Like, Star Trek costumes are generally kind of like weird space pajamas to begin with, to steal a joke that's not mine. But these things have this like weird donut target thing on the chest.
Yeah, and then the scientists are wearing like, the boy scientist is wearing like real high-waisted gray pants. They're like up to his nipples.
Star Trek always has really high pants. If you go watch the original series, they are like old man under the nipple height pants all the time.
Why?
I have no idea.
Huh. Okay.
So they launch the ship. Kirk like does the most cursory walkthrough. He's supposed to be doing this like big inspection, and people are like, "Holy crap! It's the most famous admiral in the fleet! Like I get to meet him." And he just like strolls right by and is like, "I'll be in my bunk with the women and the Romulan ale. Y'all launch the ship, would you?" And just like has none of the time for the things he needs to do as an admiral.
And they're like, okay, I guess. Okay, cool.
Yeah, he's the definition of a guy who should not have been promoted out of his post and is just furious about it. Later, in it might even be in the second movie, or in the remakes, rather, in the second remakes, there's like a very poignant scene where it's like, we've demoted you to Captain Kirk, and he like smiles and stuff, and it's like, back where he belongs.
I remember seeing that scene.
Yeah. So Chekhov attempts to get the Genesis device. He Skypes with Captain Kirk's former lover and the mother to his child, Carol Marcus.
Mm-hmm. David.
Yeah, it's his son, David. And real good dadding, by the way, there, Captain Kirk. Really, really solid dad work.
Oh, I guess he didn't know about it. Like, he later in the movie is like, why didn't you tell me I had a son?
Because you're a weirdo and you talk like this.
She's like, I thought you were too busy space boning to be a dad.
And he's like, accurate. That is one of the big problems with this movie as a whole. You're talking about it being dry. Like, not only is it dry, but everyone talks so slowly. And it's not just Shatner, who has, like, his whole career is based on him talking like a doofus. Everybody in this movie is, like, contemplating all of the syllables in every word they say.
Like, you could watch this movie on 1.25 speed, maybe 1.5 speed, and you wouldn't notice.
I literally have, if you put this movie at 1.2x, it would feel like a movie from 2018.
Yes. Because it's almost 2 hours. Why is your feature-length film from your second feature-length film from the Star Trek movie series 2 hours?
All right. The Marvel movies are all 2 hours. Some of them are almost 3 hours, and there's like a billion of those. So clearly, that is just how we do franchises in this country.
It has to be. Jesus. But, like, at least those have exciting... Like, this movie's exciting action is, like, 2 giant lumbering spaceships
It's so bad.
Slowly, like, floating on, like, a swirly background. And it's just like, why? That's not exciting. At least I almost said Space Wars. Jesus Christ.
You know, the Space Wars with the woo-woo swords and stuff. You know, those movies he likes. Get him a Space War. Hey, get him a Space War. Rent him a Space War movie.
Get him Chewbacca.
Yeah, he loves that
one.
He loves that guy. He's like a big gerbil. Get him a gerbil.
Get him one of the gerbils. He'll pretend to be a starfighter.
Yeah, a double starfighter.
Like in
that guy.
Star Wars, the battles are exciting. Like, it's like, oh, they're like zipping around, they're flying, they're shooting shit. Like, it's cool. And this, it's just like 2 humpback whales slowly floating.
And you can't even be like, it was the time, because Star Wars came out before this.
Star Wars was first.
Yeah, and if it's like, oh, we can't afford it, we don't have the budget for it, then do more punch fights. Like, those look fine.
Yeah, like, stop making me watch the humpback whales yet. Like, in 2 movies, I'll watch plenty of humpback whales. Were they humpbacks?
I don't remember.
Well,
I think
we'll
so.
say yes.
Yeah.
Don't at me. I don't care.
The whales honestly swim more gracefully in part 4 than these ships move in part 2.
They do. When, like, they could just beam aboard the ships and fight and shoot each other. Like, that's fine.
Yep. Totally fine. So, Kirk sidles up to Kirstie Alley in this elevator, and it's, like, weirdly aggressive.
Yeah, he's disgusting.
But it's like, I don't even know, like, from a movie standpoint, like, this is your hero character, and it's gross. Like, she looks uncomfortable being next to him, and you can tell that between takes, Shatner was like, hey, Kirstie Alley, you want to come see my trailer? And she was like, absolutely not. You're 140 years old. And then they like, all right, and action. Like, clearly, it was just before this scene, because she looks revolted by his very presence.
Why did she not have weird eyebrows?
You already asked this question in this podcast. I don't know. How many times did you take this note?
That's why she didn't cry. Or why she cried.
No, I said all Vulcans have those eyebrows, and you're like, not Kirstie Alley. Why doesn't she have them? We literally had that conversation in this recording session.
Drop that in as a flashback.
That's never happened before. Are you okay? Did you have a head injury? It's not like we talked about that 20 episodes ago or 2 years ago. We had that conversation less than 48 minutes ago.
I get it. I just happened to write the note now. Like, the note came to this point in my notes.
So you Ron Burgundied it?
Yeah, I didn't think.
So Chekhov Skypes with Carol Marcus, and the connection's all breaking up. I started talking about that, then I got sidetracked, and we talked about the elevator. It's fine. Nobody's missed anything, I promise.
We're really looping around.
But the connection's like all breaking up, and Carol Marcus is the only intelligent person in this movie. Is like, I'm not giving you the device. Screw you. Like, I don't know on whose authority. Tell me who gave this order. And he's like, Captain Kirk. She's like, well, I'll call him in just a minute because I have his cell phone number because he's my baby daddy. Boop, 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 boop.
Skaboop-a-doop.
So she Skypes with him, and she's like, why are you doing this? And he's like, I didn't do that. I don't know what you're talking about. And the connection's like all fuzzy-duzzy-wuzzy. So we finally are like, oh, we got to go intervene. We'll go to where Carol Marcus is and figure out what the deal is. Oh, by the way, here's what a Genesis device is. And then we take like a good 5 minutes to explain it.
Like, finally. Like, I feel like the movie should have opened with an explanation of the Genesis device.
1,000%.
And then, like, cut to, like, it would have been like Carol Marcus explaining the Genesis device, and then it's revealed that it's her giving her, like, presentation to the council or whatever the hell they're called.
That was literally what I was about to say.
And, right, like, and it'd be like, thank you, like, you are appointed, Dr. Carol Marcus, and your hot son. You can go make this device in the far reaches of space while we look for empty planets.
And we'll give you a member of the Enterprise crew. Let's see here. Kirk, no. Spock, no. Bones, no. Uhura, no. Scotty, no. Sulu, no. You want a Chekhov? How about we'll give you a Chekhov.
I wish it had been Uhura, but then she would have to get brain slugged.
I mean, more Uhura and not less is always a good formula for me. She's like a really underused part of this cast.
I agree, but I don't want to see her get brain slugged.
Well, I don't want to see anybody get brain slugged. It's extremely gross and uncomfortable.
It is.
So we get our first space fight here, and I use that term very loosely because, as we've just described, it's like two whales easing themselves into a bathtub. Yeah. But it is like a head-on collision that's happening, and then Khan is like, they're going to think that we're a friendly ship, and as soon as they get close, we'll blast the hell out of them.
Which, plot twist, works.
Right, and it's like just goofy, and even to the point where I spent like a second Googling, like, why wouldn't the shields always be up? And apparently in like other Star Trek stuff, they've like retconned it to be where you can't just roll around full shields up. One, because it's like walking around with your fists up all the time, like ready to punch people, which is kind of psycho. And two, and they're like, their whole deal is peace. Like they're the United Federation of Planets. We're here to make contact, not to have fights. And secondly, that the ships just don't have enough power to keep the shields up all the time, which is like feels like a solvable problem.
Oh, you know what we could do? I can carry around a device that charges my iPhone 4 times. Your spaceship can't do that?
Also, you literally have a device in this ship powerful enough to bend the fabric of space in order to move places at hyperspeed. So, like, I believe that we could just say that we solved the battery problem in 2350
Yes.
or whatever.
It only takes AAAs. They're hard to come by.
Exactly. So Khan attacks the ship, but he needs the Genesis plan, so he's like trying to keep the ship intact but not functional. Meanwhile, it just gets blasted all to hell, and Kirk is like doing a little bit of Kirk stuff. It's actually my favorite part of the movie from Kirk.
I just like whispering in front of a video screen works.
Well, he said to lower the communications channel, I think.
He's still, it just seems so stupid. It's like on a Skype call. It's like if your mom is on a Skype call and she's like, oh, your aunt got fat. And she's like, I can hear you.
Well, see what it would be your aunt is yammering on and your mom hits the mute button and then she says, your aunt got fat. And then your aunt is like, I saw you guys. What were you talking about? Like, I obviously know something is up now.
Yeah, I wish it had been like Kirk covers the camera and keeps talking. And he's like, that's not what that does.
Yeah, that would have been sweet. But instead, he like knows some secret passcode they can use to just take the shields down on the other ship, which is just gibberish nonsense.
It's one of 1,000 effing moments in this stupid movie where, like, if I had watched the show like a mega nerd, I would understand things. Like later when they're like, oh, beam us out, even though you were supposed to have flown away because there was a secret code that no one knew about until just now.
Yeah, I've seen this movie before and I didn't remember that part. I was like, I don't remember them being stuck on a planet for a while. That's weird. All right. And then it was like, oh, just kidding. That was our secret passcode, you know, like when you were a kid and they would, the stranger danger stuff was like, all right, give your kids a code word so that when someone picks them up who's not you, you can be like, what's the password? And they'll be like, Dilophosaurus. And then they can know that they're safe.
Oh, speaking of dinosaurs, real quick segue. The Brachiosaur, I'm going to spoil Jurassic World for a second. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom.
Are you going to talk about the part with the boat?
Yes.
Okay,
How
we could just
it's the
say that.
Brachiosaur.
Wait, from what?
their first Jurassic Park. It's supposed to be the first brachiosaur that Sattler and
Wait,
Grant ever
really?
see.
How do you
Yes.
know that?
That's what he said in an interview. That's why it rears up in the exact same way as the first brachiosaur.
Wow, that's ridiculous. It is like a really that part of the movie. Like
I
the
hated
new
that. I
Jurassic.
was so upset. I was so upset by that part of the movie.
I didn't know you had seen it. I feel like we should talk
Yes.
about it at the end of this episode, maybe, because I have some thoughts about it that I would
Oh,
like
yeah,
to
we can-
share. So
we can Back to the
we'll
Future.
just do a little tag on at the end of this for Jurassic World. Yeah, no, that's very weird that did that.
It's sad. It hurts my heart.
Yeah, I did not know that. Anyway, speaking of sad things, so they like shoot Khan and they like get away a little bit, and then the elevator opens and Scotty walks in with just like a burnt husk of a human and is like, "We need some medical assistance."
So, but everyone reacts like it's someone I'm supposed to friggin' know.
Exactly. I just like I
I was
literally
like
was
looking
like,
at the crane in my neck, like, who's that? No, nobody.
I thought it was David Marcus for a second. I was like, wait, how did he get on the ship? As like, am I supposed to know who this person is? And then we cut to the sick bay, and there's like all these people with like head bandages, and they're all like laying all over the floor and stuff. And Kirk walks into the room where the burnt corpse person was, and he like rears up and grabs Kirk's lapel, and he's like, "Captain, permission to go aboard?" And he's like, "Permission granted." And then this guy just dies. Like
He
it's
like
this-
waited for his approval to
Yes,
die.
yes, he
So
seriously
dumb.
did. Yes, and then in the best piece of acting in this whole movie, Scotty looks wrecked by this, like wrecked, like his dad got killed in his arms, wrecked. It's amazing. It's like the best performance that he has in the whole series and everything. It's just like one, just like crushing moment of this guy dying. Who again, nobody knows who this guy is.
It's beautifully dumb. So then they beam down to the laboratory where the Genesis project was being created.
And it's just a bucket full of corpses.
Well, not at first. At first, it's the movie Alien.
Yes, true. It is the movie Alien.
And I was like, why can't this be a xenomorph? I wish this was a xenomorph. Like, first, it'll just slaughter these three. It'll kill Captain Kirk real quick, jump onto the Enterprise, slaughter all them, then go over to the Captain Khan ship and be like, oh, hey, by the way, I'm going to eat you with my tiny mouth.
And then Uhura is like, "Get away from her, you bitch!"
in the power lifter.
Yes, exactly. I'm here for it.
She's finally put pants on.
Yeah, she finally got them to issue her a pair of
She
pants.
stole a man's pants and was
Yes. Ridiculous.
like... Also, where did the rat come? Like, there was a rat on the spaceship, and I was like, where? Where was that from?
What rat? What are you talking about?
As they're walking around the spaceship, the part where it feels like the xenomorphs are waiting in the ceiling.
Oh, it's not a spaceship. It's a space station.
Either way, where did the rat come? Like, rats in our world come from the outside.
It's on a planet. It's not a space station. It's
on
like
a planet?
I thought so. Yeah.
I thought it was like floating out in space. Maybe I'm wrong.
I thought it was like a research vessel on the planet. I'm not 100% sure. Hold on.
Because, like, in our world, rats come from the outside. But in space, rats can't come from the outside.
I'm picturing rats in like tiny rat spacesuits. Like
It's like Rizzo from Muppets.
Yeah, yes. Rizzo just like clings to the side of a ship and like scurries into a vent.
Also, I don't mean to be a downer, but, like, we have window technology in the year 2018. Did we just forego all window technology on our spaceships in the future?
What do you mean?
Everything is video screens. So they're like, we can't possibly see because the communication's disrupted. What about giant glass? What about
It's
clear
transparent
glass?
aluminum. Don't you remember Star Trek 4? It was like a very important episode of this program.
Either way, like, there's still options.
Regula 1 is a Federation scientific research laboratory orbiting the planet Regula. So you are right. There's no reason for a rat to be there.
Okay. Because I think they find out that they've taken the Genesis onto the planet because he says, I'm going to strand you on a planet like you did me.
Right.
Anyways. So they beam down, they find the thing. David fights his dad.
He punches the kid real good. It's like a good, solid punch.
I mean, he doesn't know it's his kid, but still, you punched your kid.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to like come deal with later. It's like, why did you never come to my birthday party? Also, you punched me in the mouth the first time we met. Is like a lot to unpack.
Hey, pass me some dark meat. Also, you punched me in the face that one time.
So meanwhile, Captain Terrell and Chekhov show up, and they seem like they're okay for like a second, and then quickly they pull guns out and are like, all right, we'll be taking that Genesis device with us. And Terrell gets like a nice little moment here where that's the thing about, I immediately cut myself off, but that's the thing about these movies is like when you're watching, like, okay, we got the original cast and we know those people are untouchable. So we got to just like fill the roster out with cannon fodder because like people are going to have to die for this movie to have stakes. And in order to do that, we just got to have these nameless nobodies. And so they're like, this is Captain Terrell, and Chekhov seems to like the guy, but it's like, I don't know who this is. I met him 45 minutes ago. It's not a big emotional impact when he's like, I can't kill Captain Kirk, and he commits suicide instead. Like, I don't know who he is.
Like, I half expected Kirstie Alley to die.
Yeah, no, for sure. She's like, she would have been like Scream. It would have been like Scream. She'd have been a little too famous to die, I think.
No, this was like her first big thing.
Really? This is like all the movies or the television stuff?
I think so. That's what I thought.
I mean, it would make sense. The non-original cast people who end up in these movies is pretty wild over the course of things. What's his name from Ferris Bueller is in one of them. Oh, you're right. This was her big break. So that does make sense that she could have easily been cannon fodder, but she wasn't. So this guy commits suicide. The worm wiggles out of Chekhov's ear and they shoot it. And then Khan is like, well, enjoy yourself on that planet. And that's where we get the real famous Khan scream.
He also says, you'll be buried alive like I was. And I was like, I missed that part where they Rita Repulsa'd you.
Rita Repulsa'd? They buried Rita Repulsa alive? That's pretty dark for a children's show.
That's how the whole series started. She came out of like a manhole on the moon.
Oh.
And she was like, now it's time to conquer Earth. I'm free. That's how literally every episode started. Because that was the theme song.
I see.
She came out of a manhole and pointed at the Earth.
So Kirk is like, I'm starving. Is there anywhere to eat? And Bones gives like the best line of the movie to me where he's like, how can you think of food at a time like this? And there's like some real disgust in it. Almost like it's really aimed at Shatner. I have a lot of theories about everybody hating William Shatner on these movies. I've noticed just now that it seems that all of my working theories are that he's an insufferable idiot, which is probably true. I think
it's probably a little true.
Yeah, like all the reviews of Galaxy Quest from original Star Trek people are like, got Shatner right.
Really?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
I need to rewatch that.
It's the second best Star Trek movie.
It's so good.
So they're like, okay, we'll show you our food storage area. And he's like, all right, what's that about? And she's like, oh, I think you'll like it. And then they like have this entire terraformed cave that they did testing on. It's just like this ridiculous. It's like
it's a matte painting Peter Pan cave.
Yes, I was going to say like in the Jules Verne story, Journey to the Center of the Earth, where it's just like this lush green space. I think that's why I thought they were on a planet, because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for them to have terraformed the inside of a cargo bay. You know what I mean?
So I think the rat was on the spaceship, and then because that's what they beamed somewhere. And I was like, how do they know they don't need like helmets where they're beaming? Because they're not putting on helmets to beam.
They hardly ever did that on the original show. Pretty much every planet they encountered was human breathable.
Cool, fine.
You don't put helmets on the famous people. Dude, they still don't put helmets. Friggin', that's my beef with every superhero movie. Like, Spider-Man takes his mask off every 85 seconds. It's like, hey, I get that you're paying money for that actor, but holy cow, stop it.
I don't think they do that anymore. They did that a lot. The third Spider-Man, like with the Tobey Maguire, he just like never had his mask on.
Right.
But I don't remember. I didn't see Spider-Man Homecoming. I just didn't care.
I watched it on like Stars or HBO or one of those, and that was like exactly the right amount of time to devote to it, I think.
Mm-hmm. I like Tom Holland. I think he's attractive. I would bone Tom Holland.
He's a great Peter Parker and a fun Spider-Man. I just don't care.
I also
enough
love
Spider-Man.
He can't not spoil something. Like apparently he was friends with the director of Jurassic World, and he casually told him the plot of Jurassic World, and he instantly went to Chris Pratt during Avengers and was like, hey, Chris Pratt, here's the plot of Jurassic World.
I've heard that about him too. At the point where they just didn't give him all the script pages.
No, he didn't get a script for Avengers.
Right.
They just didn't get. They were like, here are your lines. We're not telling you who you're talking to.
You just have the other person then speaks. You don't know who you're talking to.
Yeah.
That seems tough to act.
But hey, if you can't prove you're responsible, I get it.
Anyway, Kirk and Carol Marcus have a bit of a chit chat, and they reveal that Kirk cheated on the Kobayashi Maru, and then they like do some nonsense down here, and eventually he like gives the secret passage word, and they beam them back aboard the ship, which is like, again, one of those things where it happens a lot in like heist movies too, where it's like, oh, I'm going to explain the plan to you, and then either like you have to edit it in such a way that you don't have to hear the plan 2 times because that's boring as an audience member.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of these like, whoop, I don't know where we planned this thing and didn't tell you. So that's sort of what it felt like to me.
Okay, fair.
So they end up having another space fight, which is even more boring because like they show a diagram of it and it literally looks like a person chasing someone around a table, except it's a planet in the middle.
And like they go into this zone that apparently knocks out your transmissions and your targeting and your shields. Like, this was like a place that shouldn't exist.
It's space static. It's a lot of interference.
But why does space static knock down your shields? If your shields can be taken down by space static, then they're not good shields.
I wasn't saying your thing was bad. I was just giving you the nonsense reason they put in the movie, which is that it's space shields or space static.
Yeah, because they're like, oh, we can't target anything because our video screens are down. You know what? We invented something real cool called glass.
Also, there's targeting systems that don't rely on like visual aids that have been invented now and had been invented in the 60s. Well, I'm just talking about like ships and airplanes have like lock-on and stuff.
Yeah.
So Spock is like, he's playing 2-dimensional checkers. You should play 3-dimensional space chess. And Kirk is like, oh, that's a great idea.
No, he doesn't.
Do this.
Literally, he says he seems to be using a 2-dimensional strategy. And I was like, what, Spock? Like, he's just really boring about war? And I was like, oh, no, he meant effing literal, and I hate everything now.
Well, to be fair, Khan has spent the last 15 years trapped on a planet, so thinking of space maneuvers probably wasn't high on his list.
Fair. Except everyone knows how to fly a goddamn spaceship, apparently.
Yeah, it is very easy for people to pick up on a ship when they haven't been inside one in a decade and a half.
Like, how?
No, I have no idea.
If I didn't drive my car, I didn't drive my car for 6 months in Florida, and I still came back and was like, okay, let me just get reacclimated here for a second.
So the Enterprise crew scores some major hits on Khan's crew, and like his ship is all jacked up, and he's pretty wounded, and he just like starts crawling to the bomb and or to the Genesis device, and is like, "Well, I'm gonna blow us all up. See ya, suckers!" and slaps the button. At which point,
hey, if you gotta go out, you gotta go out.
No, I dig it. But at which point they're like, oh, we don't have enough power and speed to get away from this thing. So Spock goes like running. That's my favorite thing about the Star Trek cast is like, there's no reason for Spock to have the knowledge to be able to fix this, that he would go running in. It'd be like, you're just in the way. Leave the engine guy to do the engine. And the fact that the doctor is down there too is like, why is the doctor assisting the engine crew? Leave them alone. Stay in the sick bay where you belong. But
I have no idea what exactly Spock was doing. I just know I was like, visually he's like taking the lid off something and doing something else, but I don't know what it meant in the world.
Well, they do explain that they need to like maneuver something, but they can't because of the radiation and it's too powerful for their suits. So Spock like does the Vulcan nerve pinch to Bones and then does the remember this memory implanter thing to him, and then he runs in there and basically sacrifices himself by getting radiation poisoning to death, which like the amount of radiation in this room like basically turns him into a candle. That must be the worst way to die of all the ways to go.
Well, he wanted something dramatic. That's the only reason he came back. They were like,
Yeah,
we'll kill you off dramatically. And he was like, fine, presumably as he threw glitter in the air.
And then 2 years later, they're like, hey, we want you back. And he's like, okay.
But only if I can wear a bathrobe in the one after this one.
And also, I want to start directing them.
And they're like, we don't care. Sure.
No, they didn't. Yeah, he got to direct 2 of them. So he's basically melting. They have this really nice moment between Spock and Kirk where, you know, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. This is the best thing that could happen. I'm going to save all your lives by sacrificing my own. You know, I was and always shall be your friend. It's like a really nice moment, especially because there's a real chance people didn't think there was going to be any more Spock after this. Yeah. Obviously, 2 years later, another movie, more Spock. But I don't think at the time they know it. So this was probably pretty emotionally impactful.
cut to 2018 where we're like, we watched half the Avengers die in Infinity War, and we're like, all right, they're coming back.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
And
I get it. They're dead now, but like they're coming back.
I even made that same analogy when we were on Everything is Awesome a couple of weeks ago, where I was like, this is basically now going to be The Search for Spock, which is just a different movie that I haven't seen them do.
Yeah.
We get the second most famous part of this movie after Khan, the Scream, is this eulogy that Kirk gives for Spock, which is really nice.
Sunglasses case.
Yeah, they do put him in a sunglasses case to shoot him into space. And Shatner's been in a lot of stuff, a lot of movies, a lot of TV, a lot of spoken word record albums. It's true, it's a thing.
I know.
His best performance of his whole career is the 10 seconds where he's like, of all the souls I've met in my travels, his was the most human. It's fabulous. Like, it's so good that you're like, where did this come from? Because you're not a good actor.
Did they have Chris Pine do the same thing for Zachary Quinto?
They didn't. They've changed it. Kirk dies in that one.
Oh, well, did they flip it?
They didn't do the same exact speech. No.
Is Quinto the captain now?
No. They do some sort of. Oh, that's what it is. They discover that. I had to look it up. They discover that Khan's blood has regenerative properties, which is why Khan looks so young, even though he's like 1 billion years old. And so they inject Kirk with Khan's blood, and that's what saves him.
I hate it. So it's the same Khan from... So the Khan from this movie is the Khan in the new movie, right?
I think
that's the
so.
Regenerative blood nonsense.
No, I think it's like a different timeline Khan, because it's Benedict Cumberbatch. Obviously,
Cumberbatch.
Yes, that's actually I forgot about this. The end of Into Darkness, the Star Trek 2 is like Spock is like chasing him through a city with Uhura, I think, and they're like fist fighting and stuff, and Spock is about to like throw him off a truck, and Uhura is like, "No, we need his blood," and he just like Vulcan nerve pinch knocks him out, and they seal Khan into like a pod and put him into cold storage.
So they can just use his blood when they need it.
They put all of Khan's crew was in cold storage. That in Into Darkness, that's how it comes up, is like he got accidentally thawed out, sort of.
Okay.
It's stupid. We should talk about this dumb movie instead of that dumb movie. So they launch off into space, and that should be the very end of the movie, by the way. It should end with like the pod like lands on the thing, and then the credits come off. But instead, we have David come in for a chat, and they're like watching this happen out the window of the bridge, and are like talking about it being like bright and spectacular. And I'm just like, well, who is this for?
The nerds have already cried themselves to sleep in the theater.
Yeah, like, I want to go home. I want this to be over. Please stop. So obviously, Spock on the Planet is a sequel setup, and a movie we will probably not do for this podcast, but Star Trek 3
if
also
it's lighter
takes place.
than this one, I don't mind it.
I can't remember. That's the problem. And like,
well, then you can pre-watch it.
No way. Nuh-uh. I'm not taking that risk. If I have to watch something terrible, it will be for a purpose, and it is usually for this show.
Yeah, usually.
Final thoughts?
It's not bad, but it's not great. It's so long. It is long and slow and a little tedious, and it's very mired down in the like lore.
Mired down like Nicholas Meyer, the director?
I hate you so much.
Well, hey, he directed Volunteers, another show that we've done on this show.
Fine, but yes. I don't know that I would watch it again without alcohol.
I don't think this is a good movie to drink to. I think you'd fall asleep. I think you would be like, this would be a great nap, you know?
Yeah. Cuddle up, have a beer, fall asleep.
Yeah, I'm not wild about this one. As I've said before, Star Trek with the one with the whales is by far the best way to spend your time in the Star Trek universe to me.
It is.
It's all the performances are excellent. The stuff's really good. It's just totally the one to spend your time with, I think. And I like there's a bunch of episodes of the original show that I enjoy, but I think the movies are by and large pretty dull. So yeah, I also would not recommend this one, even though I'm the Trekkier of the two of us. This is only the second time I've seen this movie, so I think I reevaluated a lot about it this time. Which is to say, it's not very good, gang. It's not very good. Even though people think this is the best Trek movie, I disagree. I think it's probably compared to this is probably great in comparison. Like I remember watching Star Trek: The Motion Picture and being like, "Oh my god, what are we doing?" Even drier and slower than this.
I mean, if you're a Trekkie and that's your jam, no shame in that. But I get coming from that scope. Yes, this is great. I'm not a Trekkie, and this is just. I don't know things. I don't want to know things.
Yeah, it does not hold your hand at all for understanding what the hell is going on if you're not already coming in.
And that's what I want.
Fan.
Just a little hand, guide me in a direction.
Yes.
I don't know what the Nemesis Project is. I don't know who Khan is. I don't know shit.
Right. And you have to assume that there are people who are coming to see this movie who do not know this. How is this?
Yeah, moms.
Yeah, exactly.
Treat me like a mom.
Exactly.
I barely know what the Kuchikobi Mitsubishi test is.
Kobayashi Maru, you monster. Thank you all for listening to the show. Quickly, before we jump out of here, don't forget to rate the show on iTunes or tell two friends about the show. If you review it on iTunes, we will read it on the air. Special thanks to Michelle, who recently bumped up to be our first $10 a month pledge on Patreon. Thank you. If you do a year at the $10 level, you get to pick an episode. And right now, we have not been intelligent enough to limit that. So get in now before we wise up and realize that we're going to have to limit that, lest we just do all programmed by listener episodes and not get to do the show on our own anymore. So
what if she makes us do something again? She's like, I didn't like the way you talked about this movie. You're going to do it again.
We did set it up that you have to give us 3 options, so I guess you could theoretically pick 3 movies we've already done, but that seems like a very odd choice. Although, hey, you know what? I would do it if somebody asked for it. As long as please don't make it all Wrath of Khan.
No, hang on. I feel like there's one movie that I know I wouldn't want to do again, but I can't think of it on the tip of my tongue.
Oh, man. There's a few that we've both really, really hated over the years that I would not... Parasite 3D, you probably wouldn't want to watch again.
That's not a good one.
Yeah, I don't think that one, either of us would be a big favorite. Youngblood, also probably a toughie to redo. Anyway, thank you so much, Michelle. We really appreciate that. If you would like to support the show, jump onto Patreon, find a tier that works for you, and get on the supporters bus. That's what I'll call it, the supporters bus. We really appreciate all of our Patreon supporters and all the people who listen to this show, so thank you. Find more of us at dissectingthe80s.com, at facebook.com/dissectingthe80s, and twitter.com/dissectthe80s. Slightly different there. We'd love to hear from you, so don't hesitate to chime in and say hello to us. You can also email us at dissectingthe80s@gmail.com. Next up is August, our anniversary month. We're coming up on the end of season 4 of the show. Although we don't take a break, we do delineate it by the anniversary date. And our next episode will be coming to you on August 13th with Inner Space.
In honor of the Meg. Get it?
Thank you all for listening to the show. I've been Trip Lano.
I will always be Andrew Lano.
Until August 13th.
Don't you forget about me.
Do you want to do Jurassic World real quick?
Yeah.
Okay. Hated the first Jurassic World. I thought it was a trash garbage movie, and I really enjoyed the hell out of this.
I didn't hate the first one. I was like, this is fun and dumb, which is what I've come to like. The first one is not fun. The first one is beautiful art, and I will fight you if you disagree with me. Everything after that is just fun and dumb, and this was no exception.
I recently rewatched Jurassic Park the other night, to go to sleep, and I fell asleep pretty early in it. And I fell asleep. I got through the part where they see the Brontosaurus, and then I fell asleep, and then I woke up at the T-Rex rampage, and I was like, this is the perfect way to watch Jurassic Park. For the 29th viewing of you watch the beginning, and then you sleep, and then you wake up for T-Rex monstrosity, mwah. But honestly, the best part about Jurassic World 2 is it's just first of all, it's 2 completely different movies. It looks like they had 2 scripts and they just Frankenstein monstered them together. But the part when they get off the island and go to the mansion is insane 1950s B movie mustache twirling insanity with just like, hey, we're going to buy ourselves a dinosaur.
I liked it though.
I did too. I thought it was amazing, but it's like so for us weird dorks and not for the mainstream public.
Yeah. It was also very, because like obviously the T-Rex in this movie is supposed to be the T-Rex from the first movie.
Right.
Like that's been a through line, and I love that. Like I imagine the way she acts in this movie, I imagine she's just like a grizzled old drag queen who's like teaching a new crop of queens like what to do. She's like tss, tss, like at one point as they're all the dinosaurs are running away from like the lava, one of the carnivores stops like trying to attack someone, and the T-Rex comes over and like bites him, and he's like, knock it off. Keep running towards the ocean.
Yeah. Honestly, it reminded me of like Unforgiven, where it's like the old cowboy out for one last job and the T-Rex is just like lumbering its way through stuff. But there's a couple things in this movie that I want to call out as like amazing stupid stuff. The one is Chris Pratt getting shot with a tranquilizer dart and passing out and then waking up with lava like inches from him. And movies do this all the time, but lava is really hot, like to the point where the air around it would burn your lungs and you would die. Like Chris Pratt would have been dead already because he would have burned his lungs to pieces.
He would have roasted. He would have roasted from the inside out.
Yes, but he is tranquilized and is like coming alive fingertip by fingertip, and so he's like flopping his corpse around on this log.
It's so stupid.
Stupid. Yeah, it's really super duper dumb. And then the sequence right after that where they're like trapped underwater in the bubble and it takes them like 10 minutes to bust out of this stupid thing is so crazy.
It didn't need to be that long. I agree. But you know what else I didn't need? I didn't need to watch the dinosaurs plummeting to their death in the water.
Yes, with the little legs kicking as they go. It was like, so dark.
Guess what the people who come to see Jurassic World love? Dinosaurs. Guess what we don't want to watch get murdered slowly? Dinosaurs.
The Brontosaurus was the worst part because it's like standing on that dock and then it rears back on its back legs like, oh, its feet just touched the lava. And then it's like hopping left foot to foot to try to stop being burnt before it just collapses. It's so dark.
And then I found out in an interview, like I said before, that's the same brachiosaur that Ellie Sattler and Alan Grant saw.
The lifespan of these dinosaurs is a little far-fetched, I think, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, it's because it is supposed to be the same time. Like it's been
it's 25
years.
Yeah.
Although I guess like in a perfect environment, animals live much longer.
They do, but it just seems a little silly. I also love the sequence right before that where these guys like abandon a truck for some reason, and Bryce Dallas Howard jumps into this truck and floors it with Chris Pratt and the other guy, and they jump off the dock into the boat, and nobody notices.
Nobody says jack shit. Everyone's like, guys.
There was an empty spot on the boat, and then a truck leapt into the air and filled it, and everyone's just like, "Huh? I thought
Let's watch this brachiosaur melt."
Yeah, exactly. It's really stupid.
I did appreciate. Here's the thing. I don't care for Bryce Dallas Howard. That's not a secret. Didn't hate her in this movie.
Yeah, I didn't either. I actually enjoyed the part everyone is clowning on this the most for is in the trailer where like she is in the T-Rex truck thing and then Chris Pratt's in it too and he has to like jump through the jaws of the T-Rex and people are like, no, the T-Rex would chomp down and get that. And I'm like, but they have it on drugs and it's old. Like, I'll let that one slide.
It's
like
a grizzled old queen.
Yeah, and it's high as a kite.
She's gonna wear flats. It's okay.
Yeah.
She's old.
Yeah. Versus in the first Jurassic World, where like Bryce Dallas Howard outruns it in high heels, like that one I couldn't let go. I couldn't get over.
Someone did mention, they were like, yeah, except it's been in captivity its whole life, 23 years. So it probably doesn't know its own speed yet. And it's probably
that's
like
probably true.
Old and weak. So I was like, okay, I'll give it that she could have kept her own. I don't think she would have outrun it. She wouldn't have paced it.
Yeah.
She would have lapped a T-Rex.
This movie also takes like a lot of time in showing you Bryce Dallas Howard's feet and what she's wearing, and it's definitely a fuck you to people like me. There's like 5 or 6 shots of this movie that are aggressively showing you her feet.
I didn't notice that.
And not in like a Tarantino way, but in a way of like, look, she's wearing boots. Look, she's wearing shoes. Because like the first shot that you see her in this movie is like feet to head, and it's high heels and then up to the top of her head, like where she's giving dialogue. And then later you see her again wearing much more sensible footwear. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I enjoy the hell out of it. Like, it's very stupid. It's incredibly, incredibly dumb. And I'm honestly most curious to see about the little girl in it.
So I feel really dumb.
Okay.
Because at first, when they were like, you look just like your mother, and she wasn't allowed to look at pictures of her, I was like, is it like Ellie Sattler? Is it Lex?
That's what I kept thinking too, yeah.
Like, is it going to be some weird thing where, like, Lex was his daughter, but also somehow, like, Hammond called her a I don't know what's happening.
Right.
And then when they finally revealed it, it was like, you and your mother. And it was her and the maid. And I was like, the maid was her mother? That's a weak twist.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh. And then when she was like, I raised both of them, I was like, I'm confused. And it literally took till him saying, she's a clone, for me to be like, oh, she's a clone.
The thing that I think is really interesting is there's a couple scenes where they show this little girl, like, hunting, sort of. Like, when the dinosaurs are loose in the thing. And she moves like a raptor. And I am so here for a version of this movie where this child is part raptor, and then she and Chris Pratt have to do like raptor fights, and like
that's why she and Chris Pratt got along.
Yeah, and like I'm not kidding. Turn the stupid dial all the way up. Break the knob off. Like, take stupid, twist it as high as it goes, and then keep twisting until it snaps off in your hands. That's what these movies should be now, because they're all stupid. Like,
you're not going to make a good one anymore.
No. So what I want from the next movie is this is my pitch. If you're listening, Universal Pictures, I'm available. All of these bad guys who bought these dinosaurs have managed to, because the problem that they set up at the end of this movie would be over in 20 minutes. There's like 11 various loose dinosaurs. It'd be done 5 minutes. They'd send in the military.
Yeah, because the end of the movie is basically like, hey everyone, dinosaurs are in your world now, don't hurt them, bye.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not how that works.
No, we would be sending the Navy after the Mosasaurus, and we'd be sending the Marines and the Air Force and everybody else after all the other land dinosaurs. And in like a month, there would be no more of them. We would hunt them to death, and that would be the end. But what I want from the next movie is all these like rich, crazy people are like, all right, I saw these dinosaurs get loose and rampage, so now I know what they can do, and I want one. And BD Wong is making like super predators, like the movie Predator type predators. And the only way to defeat them is Chris Pratt and the half raptor girl with a pack of raptors as like the elite fighting force that gets dropped in to hunt down the other dinosaurs. And so it's Pratt like I want him on a saddle on the back of Blue, like leading the charge with a sword.
I was so mad that no one wrote a dinosaur in this.
I know.
Because that's kind of stupid. Like when he was like, "Oh, you guys," like when the thing closed without him, I was like, "Oh, he's gonna jump on the back of a fucking Triceratops and he's just gonna book it."
Yes, that's what I wanted. Him holding that little like a horn thing. Yeah, and just like broom broom broom. But I want Pratt and the little girl as like the super raptors leading the charge and fighting other dinosaurs. So you want the movie
Logan, but with Chris Pratt as the little girl?
A little girl who's half raptor. Like, I want her to be...
The little girl in Logan is a mutant, so yes.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying, I want her to be like... and the raptor's like charging after her. Like, I want her speaking raptor. I want like full on stupid. Because there is a version... Jealous. What's that?
And then Blue gets jealous?
Yes. Yeah. Pratt gets jealous too, actually.
Okay, I'm here for it.
But there was a version that floated around, like what the original Jurassic Park 4 was going to be, and it was human dinosaur hybrids, like firing guns and stuff. And if they were just like slow playing to get to that, give it to me. I would go see that 2 times. I would go see that for free on Movie Pass, and then again with my own money.
I was gonna say I would watch the Movie Pass and then pay for it again.
Yeah, I want Chris Pratt riding a dinosaur with a machine gun on his arm and then charging after something. And you know what? Let's go a step further. The T-Rex is on the team too. I want the T-Rex charging in.
I want him riding the T-Rex.
That seems impossible, but yes, I want that too.
Oh, that's where the line gets drawn for these.
No.
stupid
I just mean
movies?
from a standpoint, like where would you put the saddle? You'd have to put it on top of its head or something. Where would you
the
sit?
saddle goes like right where the shoulder blades would be.
I know,
And,
but
like,
you
it
wouldn't be
wraps
able to
around his
see over
belly.
its head.
No, it's like a harness. I mean, you would have to like peek around.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like Chris Pratt will be able to see, whereas if he's on Blue, he could just like be shooting up high.
Ooh, you know what it is? No, they install they bolt a water tower ladder to the T-Rex's neck, so he like climbs. He holds on with one hand to the water tower thing, and he like fires away.
I got it. It's a T-Rex baby Bjorn. So it's Pratt in a baby Bjorn with the gun, and the T-Rex is like little tiny arms are on either side of him,
Chris Pratt's in a
flapping.
papoose.
Yes, Chris Pratt in a baby Bjorn going like, "We're coming for you." That's what I want. Lost World 3, Jurassic Park 6, Jurassic Park
World.
6, Jurassic World 3, Chris Pratt and a baby Bjorn. That's the
I
subtitle.
like it. I like it so much.
Nothing I want more than that. I would be all day for that.
I really liked the design of the Indoraptor. It was like pretty. It was the black and gold. Like it was pretty.
Yeah, I thought it was cool. And I honestly, the other thing I liked about this movie is there's a ton of dinosaur puppets in it, and it just looks more real.
So much.
Yeah, that's the best part of it. Because I recently we watched Jurassic Park. Like I slept through most of it, and then I was like, "What are those? Those other ones are on Netflix. Let me fire those up." And they're very not good. I had them on while doing stuff on my laptop. I think I was editing one of these podcasts actually, but it was like mostly just CGI messes. Then occasionally you'd see a little puppet. It's like, "Oh, there's the puppet. All right."
I also got really confused at the real quick. At the end when Bryce Dallas Howard, because Bryce Dallas Howard is like the action hero of the movie. They like try and make you think it's Chris Pratt, but she's kind of the action hero.
Honestly, Blue should have been the third build character in the movie. It should have been Chris Pratt, Bryce Dallas Howard, and Blue on top of the title on the poster.
I agree. But at the end when she like has the gun that trains the Indoraptor onto a subject,
Yeah.
I was like, why is she pointing it at Chris Pratt? I thought she was gonna like find the wormy dude, the like who sent her on the mission. I thought she was gonna like, oh hey buddy, look familiar? And the Indoraptor was just gonna be like twitch, launch.
Yeah.
Next,
Yeah.
you're gonna give it wings. You know that's
Oh,
has
for
to be the
sure.
next
Yeah,
step, right?
well, that's how Tremors worked.
Oh, I meant they were going to engineer it with wings because
I know,
they do
but
create it.
that's the Tremors evolution. First, it was like the big thing, and then it was the little thing, and then it was a flying thing.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
So they went
It's
from
been
the
a minute
big.
since I've seen Tremors.
They went from the big Tremor to Jurassic World 2 is the small dinosaur, and the next one will be a flying dinosaur. It'll be Tremors 3.
Oh, I'm on board.
Yeah. So anyway, that's all I got for this. It's a stupid movie, but I kind of enjoyed the heck out of it.
Agreed. I loved it.
So I think it's worth it. As long as you're going in knowing it's dumb as a bag of hammers, you'll have a good time.
Yeah, don't go in expecting Jurassic Park because we can't make another one.
No,
apparently.
never, ever.
I hope we get Dr. Sattler back in one of them.
Yeah, Ian Malcolm is in this movie for 95 seconds tops.
And they pretended he was like in the movie.
He's like the second lead in the trailer, and he's in this movie for under 3 minutes, for real. Mm-hmm. Thank you for listening to the show. I've been Trip Lano.
I will always be Andrew Leno.
Until our next episode.
Don't you forget about me.
Dissecting the 80s is a Chum Some of This production.